Within every story, there are a myriad number of paths events could play out. For every show we watch, every book we read, and every story we engage with, that is but one of the paths the events may take. But what happens when we pull the curtain back a bit to see what else there might have been, and see what happens if things played out differently? With that said, hello there, Eliza here, and welcome to the first episode of Divergent Paths, where I take a look at stories from across pop culture and tell them in a new way. This series was inspired by Masako X's Dragon Ball What Ifs, however I don't want to limit myself to just one media franchise as there are many that I love. This first story series is based around Pokemon, where I will be retelling Ash's story. This will likely take more than... I have no idea how many videos, but I'm going to do others in between, so don't expect it all at once, as I basically have to rewrite an anime that has been going on for over 1,000 episodes. I am, however, giving myself a few restrictions for this one. The first restriction is that Ash must still have Pikachu. This is not going to be what if Ash chose a different starter. This is going to be what if Ash's journey took a different path. You'll see what I mean when I get there. But if you want a few good what if Ash chose a different starter, Enter the Unknown has a good one where Ash chooses a Squirtle. Also, my second limitation is that I must ensure that every human character and Pokemon has a unique personality and species. If Ash has a Pokemon, his traveling companions cannot have it, and if his traveling companions have it, he cannot catch it. This might be a little bent as things go on, but I will do my best not to add too many new characters, human or Pokemon, though I will remove, combine, or rename swap characters when I want. I must also use the same number of episodes that each Pokemon series uses. That means the original series, which encompassed everything from Kanto to the end of Johto, would have to have the same number of episodes. Not each season. Like, I could add more episodes to the Kanto run, I could add more episodes to the Orange Island run, reduce the number of episodes, just the original series would need the same number of episodes. Now remember, these are but one way this story may play out, and many others may have their own ideas of how things might have occurred. As one last word before we begin, please watch the video to the end, as that is where I will explain my reasonings for my changes. With all that stated, let us begin with an introduction. Welcome one and all, my name is Eliza, also known as Eliza GWR or Elixia, and this is Diversion Paths, where I take a look at the tangled tapestry of untold tales and wondrous world of what-ifery. Now let us peel back the curtains of time as we see the Diversion Path that takes Ash's journey on a different road. Our story opens with Ash watching a battle between a Nidorino and a Gengar, excited as his very own Pokemon journey is about to begin. He stays up late watching TV, drifts off, and in the middle of his sleep he breaks his alarm clock, causing him to wake up late and arrive at Oak's lab after all the others. He winds up getting his first Pokemon in the reluctant Pikachu. With the electric rodent quite literally in tow, he leaves Pallet Town and fails to catch a few wild Pokemon, a task made more difficult due to Pikachu being unwilling to aid him and laughing at his efforts. This leads to the event we all know, where Ash throws a rock at a Pokemon, angering a wild Spearow who doesn't take too kindly to being hit with said rock. It raises a swarm of other Spearow, and Ash flees, doing his best to protect Pikachu. He jumps into a river and steals Misty Bike, only to wreck it, and again try to protect Pikachu by standing between the electric rodent and the flock of angry birds. Pikachu, shocked by Ash's willingness to sacrifice himself, uses their electricity to shock the Spearow, being struck by a lightning bolt in the process. This is where we have our first change. The leader of the Spearow manages to avoid some of the thunderbolt and continues towards Ash. And, trying to protect Pikachu again, Ash uses the last of his strength to throw a Pokeball. He lays on the ground beside Pikachu as the ball falls to the ground. It rocks back and forth. Once. Twice. And with a loud ding, he has caught his first Pokemon. Rolling over onto his back, he looks up into the sky, and he sees a large rainbow-colored bird flying overhead, signifying the journey and the road waiting for him. Battered, beaten, and bruised, Ash, still feeling the pain from the Spearow onslaught, raggedly gathers up Pikachu and the Pokeball containing the recently captured tiny bird Pokemon. Lurching down the road, he makes his way towards Viridian City, hoping to get the care his Pokemon need. The city in sight, he begins to speed up, his legs in a stumbling rush to reach the Pokemon Center. As he approaches the town, he is stopped by Officer Jenny, who thinks he might be a thief with the notorious Team Rocket. After learning he is a new trainer and has 2 injured Pokemon, both on the verge of fainting. She gives him a lift to the nearby Pokemon Center. There, Ash gives Nurse Joy his 2 Pokemon to be healed and calls his mom to tell her he made it to Verdan City. As he relaxes in the Pokemon Center, he is called by Professor Oak, who is ecstatic he won a bet against his grandson because Ash was able to catch a Pokemon. They talk with Ash mentioning the rainbow-colored bird he saw, but Oak doesn't believe him, despite Ash's protestations. When the call ends, an angry Misty bursts in carrying her burnt-to-a-crisp bike. Thankfully, that is tempered by her empathy when she learns Pikachu is essentially in intensive care. The two wait, and after a while, Joy comes out with Pikachu and Spearow's Pokeball, which she hands to him but tells him Pikachu needs a little bit more time in the recovery room to rest. As Ash sits by Pikachu's side, 2 people in white costumes alongside a talking Meowth, calling themselves Team Rocket, attack the Pokemon Center. Nurse Joy, Ash, and Misty retreat to the office, where backup power comes online and Nurse Joy starts transporting Pokeballs, while Ash, unwilling to use Spearow to defend the Pokemon Center out of fear of it attacking him, wonders what to do. Misty yells at him for being a coward, too afraid to fight, which causes him to drop said Pokeball and Spearow to come out. Spearow leers at Ash, contemplating attacking him, but when Ekans bursts through the door, Spearow goes to attack the snake instead. Spearow is outmatched but still puts up a decent fight, especially after Misty calls out Staryu to assist it. Long enough for Pikachu, with a power boost from Ash using the destroyed bike, to send Team Rocket blasting off. With the fight over, Ash's Spearow flies over and starts pecking him on the head until Ash recalls them. Leaving Verdan City, Ash, Misty, and Pikachu head into Verdan Forest, only for Misty to be freaked out by a Caterpie. Upon seeing the small bug, Ash throws a Pokeball, catching it, proclaiming how great he is catching 2 Pokemon. Misty tears him down, saying that one of his Pokemon doesn't like him and the other he caught through sheer luck, and most other trainers usually have more than 3 Pokemon by now. They camp out for the night and Ash decides to let Caterpie and Spearow out to hopefully bond with them, but he needs to recall Spearow almost immediately after they attack him again. In the morning, when Misty wakes up, she freaks out again due to Caterpie being right on top of her. Ash tries to calm her down, and fails to notice a Pidgeotto landing nearby, eating something off the ground before flying off into the sky. Not long after, Team Rocket shows up attempting to steal Ash's Pikachu, and Ash sends Spearow out to fight them. Spearow does its best, while also making sure to get a few pecks in against Ash, but isn't enough to defeat 3 Pokemon on its own. As a last resort, Ash sends out Caterpie to assist Spearow, and the two work in tandem to defeat the Rockets, leaving them strung up as Pikachu is rescued. In the aftermath, Spearow takes the opportunity to attack Ash again as Caterpie evolves into Metapod. As they travel through the woods, Ash and Misty come across another trainer named Saizo and his partner Cubone, who unfortunately interrupts them in catching a Weedle. He mentions having faced the other 3 trainers from Pallet, having beaten 2 of them and lost to 1. Ash agrees to have a 2-on-2 battle. Ash uses his Metapod and Spearow against Saizo's Cubone and Pinsir. The battle ends in a draw as it is interrupted by a Beedrill swarm, which block him from calling back Metapod. After the swarm passes, Saizo offers to help Ash find his Metapod, calling out his Doduo to assist. They do find Metapod, but Team Rocket interrupts, awakening the Beedrill. Ash protects Metapod from the Beedrill, and it evolves into Butterfree, putting most of them to sleep. One of them, still awake, flies to attack Saizo, and Ash has Butterfree stop it in order to protect his new friend. As it falls to the ground, Ash throws a Pokeball and catches it. Oh look, 4 Pokemon. Our 2 heroes part from Saizo, with Ash promising to face him again someday. Saizo goes his own direction, with intentions to gather badges and face Ash in the Pokemon League. Leaving the forest, Ash, Misty, and Pikachu arrive in Pewter City and meet a sketchy man attempting to sell them rocks. Ignoring him for the most part, Ash ponders what to do about the gym in Pewter, when Misty reminds him that the leader there has rock Pokemon, and with his team being 2 bugs, a bird, and an electric rat, he doesn't really stand a chance, especially since many rock Pokemon are also immune to electricity due to being part ground. Ash thinks he might win with Beedrill and Spearow, as both are really strong. Unfortunately, the battle is a sweep as Brock takes down the 2 Pokemon. Ash takes his Pokemon to the Pokemon Center for healing, and he encounters the Sketchy Man again. The Sketchy Man offers to supercharge Pikachu, giving it a chance to win against Brock, which Ash and Pikachu agree to despite Misty's objections. When the battle begins, Spearow comes out of its Pokeball on its own for a rematch against Geodude. It puts up a strong fight and defeats the Boulder Pokemon, knocking itself out in the process. In the second battle against Onix, Pikachu starts off doing very little, only for Team Rocket to interrupt the battle, causing the sprinklers to go off. Ash sends Team Rocket blasting off, but he refuses to fight Onix in the aftermath because with all the water around, that would be cheating, and he doesn't want to win like that. Brock respects that decision and chases after Ash to give him the badge, only for the sketchy man to show up and reveal himself to be Brock's dad. He takes up Brock's position, allowing his son to travel with Ash. Heading up towards Mount Moon, the events here are pretty much the same as they occurred before, but with Ash having a Spearow and a Beedrill instead of a Pidgeotto. Brock still catches Zubat, and Ash catches nothing despite trying due to being stopped by Seymour the scientist. Team Rocket attempts to steal the Moonstone, etc. Two major changes are that Ash is given a piece of the Moonstone by the Clefairy after helping them protect it, and that Spearow is revealed to know Mirror Move instead of Pidgeotto, learning Whirlwind. With Mount Moon behind them, the group arrives in Cerulean City, though Misty stays on the outskirts, not wanting to go in, and Brock goes off on his own to take care of stuff. Author's note, I still to this day wonder what was more important to woman crazy Brock than going to see three beautiful women in bathing suits. I mean, really? You avoid going to the place of beautiful women. Okay, Brock, you're weird. Ash goes to challenge the three gym leaders, but each of them has been defeated by the three previous pallet trainers. They offer Ash a free badge, but Misty arrives and takes Ash on as the gym leader in a 3-on-3 battle. Pikachu refuses to fight Misty, so Ash uses Beedrill, Butterfree, and Spearow against her Goldeen, Staryu, and Starmie. The battle comes down to the line with Beedrill versus Starmie, only for Team Rocket to interfere. Ash's Pikachu helps out in order to save the Pokemon, but Misty's Goldeen is injured in the incident, causing her to leave it behind, and asks her sisters if she can take Seal with her, which they agree to. They also give Ash the Cascade badge for saving the gym. There is no path to the Pokemon League. Moving on. As Ash and company arrive at the Pokemon Tech, most of the events play out as normal, until Ash defeats Giselle, who vows to face Ash again at the Pokemon League. Continuing their travels, Ash and the gang come across Gary, which leads to an argument between the two pallet trainers, especially after Gary makes fun of Ash for only having 4 Pokemon when he already has over 2 dozen. Upset at this, Ash challenges Gary to a Pokemon battle, which he grants to his weaker rival. Brock agrees to referee, and the two have a 3-on-3 battle. Ash chooses to use Beedrill, Spearow, and Pikachu, while Gary chooses Nidorino, Growlithe, and Graveler. Ash manages to take down 2 of Gary's Pokemon, but Gary manages to win in the end, though Spearow does evolve during the battle. As the battle reaches its conclusion, Team Rocket abducts Ash's Spearow and Pikachu as well as Gary's Growlithe, causing the two pallet trainers to work together to rescue them. Spearow sends Team Rocket flying, finally willing to listen to Ash begrudgingly. Afterwards, Gary says that maybe he isn't as much of a loser as he thought, but he's still a loser. Ash fumes to himself that he will catch better Pokemon than Gary, even if he doesn't catch as many. Ash and Co. come across a wild Oddish, which both he and Misty attempt to catch, but both fail due to the intervention of a Bulbasaur. Tracking the Bulbasaur through the woods, the group encounters several traps. Falling victim to them one after the other, they eventually encounter Melanie, who had set up the traps in order to protect a village for injured wild and abandoned Pokemon. As they are talking with Melanie, Team Rocket attempts trying to suck up all the Pokemon in the village with a vacuum pack, and Ash rushes to defend the village. Thanks to Pikachu, Beedrill, and the village protector Bulbasaur, Team Rocket is defeated and the Pokemon are saved. Bulbasaur wants to go with Ash, but only if Ash proves himself, so he faces it in a battle with Pikachu and wins. However, Ash is worried about the safety of the village with its protector gone, and Beedrill chooses to stay behind in order to help Melanie protect the Pokemon. Ash agrees to let it stay, but states he will call on them if he ever needs to. As they continue on, our heroes encounter a Charmander laying atop a rock. Ash attempts to catch it a few times but fails. He is worried about it, especially after Brock points out how weak its tail flame is. Ash tries to talk to the weak Pokemon, causing them to spend more time around the fire type. Enough time that when it starts to look like it might rain, Ash convinces the Pokemon to at least let it carry him to the Pokemon Center so it can be healed and be out of the rain, and then it can go back to waiting on the rock. They run to make sure they get it to the Pokemon Center before the rain gets too heavy. While at the Pokemon Center waiting for Charmander to get better, they overhear Damien talking about what he did to a Charmander, and Ash puts 2 and 2 together. That the Charmander they just got to the center was Damien's, and Ash attempts to deck him, but Nurse Joy's yelling stops him. Damien is told to leave the center as Nurse Joy heard his comments and doesn't want someone as cruel to Pokemon as him there. Unbeknownst to them, Charmander also overheard Damien while in the recovery room. Worried, Ash asks Nurse Joy if he can sleep on the couch in the recovery room, while Misty and Brock take the beds in one of the guest rooms. In the morning, Ash wakes to find Charmander missing and the window open. The 3 decide to head back to the rock and check on Charmander, and on their way there, they fall into a pit dug by Team Rocket. As Team Rocket attempts to steal Pikachu, Charmander shows up and saves the day, blasting Team Rocket off again. Damien sees this and tries to convince Charmander to return to him, but Charmander roasts Damien as well. Offering it to join him one more time, Charmander happily leaps into a Pokeball that Ash holds out. When Ash meets up with the Squirtle Squad, things play out mostly the same, but with the Squirtles figuring out Team Rocket are up to no good sooner. Also, the Squirtle that goes with Ash decides to keep its shades on most of the time, rather than not. Because let's face it looks good in the shades. The events at Bill's Lighthouse are again mostly unchanged, other than Ash arguing he has 7 Pokemon when Misty says he only has 6. He still captures Krabby and it is sent to Professor Oak. One major difference here is that Team Rocket doesn't use freaking real-ass missile launchers on the Pokemon! Instead, they use something like a bazooka that shoots pester balls and net launchers. The reason why is Team Rocket would not use a missile launcher on a Pokemon, as that might kill the Pokemon! Seriously, why was this episode kept on and the episode of the Tauros Band again? As Ash and company arrive in Vermilion City, Ash is all excited to get his 3rd badge, but as they approach, there's a large commotion about a Pokemon preventing construction workers from getting close to a vacant, decrepit building. As the group investigates, they see a Machop preventing people from demolishing the old building. Brock goes to ask the demolition crew what's going on and is informed that the Machop is preventing them from tearing down an old training center for Pokemon in order to put up a new hotel. Worried about the Machop, Brock asks Ash to wait on going to the gym so they can find out what's up with the Machop. As they investigate, they discover that the muscle Pokemon was formerly owned by the person who ran the training center, who had died a few years back, and ever since the Machop did all it could to protect the old building. Meanwhile, Team Rocket is hired by the person who's trying to build a hotel to get rid of the Machop, without hurting it if they could, and they try to use their usual gadgets to trap the Pokemon. Fortunately for it, Ash, Brock, and Misty arrive in order to stop Team Rocket, and Brock does his best to protect the Machop. Unfortunately, the old building is unable to withstand the battle between our 3 heroes and Team Rocket and is destroyed in the process. The Machop is devastated at the loss of the only thing it had left, but Brock reveals he managed to save a picture of the Machop and its former trainer, and offers the Machop to come with him. It's hesitant, but then the person wanting to build the hotel arrives, and it turns out to be an old friend of the person who owned the training center. He tells the Machop he will be building a hotel that has a rebuilt version of the training center with a dedication to his old friend in the lobby. The Machop, realizing that the hotel builder means well, decides to go with Brock. The events of Ash's battle against Lieutenant Surge are entirely unchanged. I'm sorry, there have been a handful of mostly unchanged story beats for this, but for several of them, I cannot think of ways having Spearow would genuinely change things go down. On the SSN, unfortunately, this is also another episode where things are mostly unchanged. One of the few differences is, after the battle between Ash and the gentleman, when the gentleman makes the offer to trade with Ash, Ash declines. Because why would Ash give away one of his Pokemon like that? He cares about that. This makes it so there is no needed trade at the end of the episode, and Ash's group and Team Rocket both get off the ship before it sinks, making it so James has a Magikarp moving forward and Ash never had to chase down his Pokeball and get stuck on a sunken ship. That means there is no Pokemon shipwreck or island of the giant Pokemon, sadly. There is also no Beauty and the Beach because I cannot think of a way to salvage that episode. Dear God, the hell! That episode is vile and disgusting. Moving on. Not long after being aboard the SS Anne, Ash and the group encounter a horsey that is injured and reveals a ink blot of 2 Pokemon, Tentacool and Tentacruel. While they're trying to help the horsey, the 3 befriend a trainer named Richie, who, when the Tentacool and Tentacruel attack a construction project by a woman named Nastina, helps Misty talk down the giant Tentacruel. In the end, Misty still catches the horsey, but Ash makes a new friend and rival in Richie, who agrees to face Ash again someday. Afterwards, Ash and crew still encounter the Ghastly on Maiden's Peak, and Ash does indeed say goodbye to Butterfree, who goes flying off with their pink-colored partner. Now with only 5 Pokemon in hand, Beedrill still at Melanie's village, and Krabby with Professor Oak, Ash and company are traveling through an underground tunnel that goes through a mountain, when a Team Rocket plan traps them all inside. Separated. The trap separates the 3, as well as Team Rocket, but through a series of circumstances, Ash and Co. and the Rocket Trio all manage to wind up in one area, realizing they have no way out. Brock keeps his cool and comes up with an idea using James's coughing to release a little bit of gas at a time to find an airflow, and then has Ash's Bulbasaur help brace the ceiling as he calls on Machop and Geodude to dig them out, once they find where the wind is coming from. Freed from the tunnel, Team Rocket tries to take Ash's Pikachu one last time, but they are quickly defeated, and Ash and Co. see where they have arrived, right on the outskirts of Saffron City. And that's where we will end today's part of the story. How will the story be changed as things move forward? Will there be any more changes to the teams of Ash and his friends? Only time in the next episode of Divergent Paths, What If Ash Caught Spearow? Will tell. Before we close out the episode, this episode was originally only going to cover 12 episodes, but then I realized how many episodes remain somewhat, mostly, or completely unchanged. In that, we needed to add in a bit more, so I brought it up to 20. So now we end this episode of Divergent Paths. I know about a third of the episodes in this episode are mostly unchanged, but as the story continues, there will be more and greater changes. If you like this, please be sure to hit that like button, and if you want to see more, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. Also, even though I am new to this, I want to make these episodes better. So if you want to support this and my other shows, including my Power Rangers show and other upcoming shows, so I can afford things like editors, please check out my Patreon. Joining my Patreon also gives you access to my Discord. You can also follow me on Twitter if you want. Links are in the description for both of those.
For those of you who don't know, I am currently homeless, as I stated. And if you want to support me to be not homeless, I have a link to a GoFundMe project I am working on.
As for channel shoutouts, this time I'm shouting out to the people who probably don't need it, but I mentioned them in this video. And those shoutouts are to MasakoX
and Enter the Unknown.
Also, I'm going to give a few shoutouts to a few other YouTubers I like Zenith Warrior Princess. I hope to make more videos in the future, and I'm working on making sure I make them to the best of my ability. Once I have Patreon contributors, this is where I would shout out the higher tier contributors. As Ash and company say farewell to Butterfree, who knows what the mind has in store for them? Well, there's one person who knows. Find out next time when we return to Ash's journey on Divergent Path.